Welcome to Grammar Episode 4, Verb Wars. So today we're talking about subject-verb agreement. And that is pretty simple, but there can be some complex parts to it. So first, here's my little Han Solo figure. This Han Solo belongs to Mrs. Cunningham. So you can see in this, we have a singular subject. And we need a singular verb to go along with it. So belongs is our singular verb. So that's all that subject-verb agreement means, is that your subject, if it's singular, has to agree with your verb. It also has to be singular. Another example, these Han Solos belong to Miss Cunningham. So you see here that we have a plural subject, 2 Han Solos, and we have a plural verb, belong. It is kind of weird that the singular verb has an S at the end and the plural verb does not. That happens with a lot of singular and plural forms of verbs. So do recognize that. And it's easy to tell because you can try replacing your subject. With a pronoun. Like for a singular subject, you can try replacing it with he, which is a singular pronoun. And you know that he belongs sounds better than they belongs. You have a plural subject, you replace it with they, and you know it should be they belong, not they belongs. That's a quick trick to try if you're not sure which verb is singular and which verb is plural. Try the sound of it with those pronouns. So moving on from there. Compound subjects. So we get the idea that your subject should agree with your verb, but there are some tricks. Because sometimes you have compound subjects. So we see in our first sentence, this is a regular subject that's not compound. Han Solo is sitting on my bookshelf. Singular subject, singular verb. Now we get to Han Solo and SpongeBob are sitting on my bookshelf. So here, Han Solo and SpongeBob, because they're joined with that coordinating conjunction and, form a compound subject. When a compound subject is formed using and to join them, it's going to make your subject plural. So you have to use a plural verb. So while Han Solo is sitting, Han Solo and SpongeBob are sitting. So remember that compound subject, you need a plural verb. Now, it's a little bit different if you use the word or. So let's look at that. The Power Rangers or Han Solo is going to fall off the shelf. Here's where we get to some things where maybe the thing that sounds the best is not necessarily correct. So we have this word or, and it can be kind of tricky. So when you have or and a compound subject with the word or, you actually do not join the two. So if we had Han Solo or SpongeBob is going to fall off the shelf, you would again say is. You would have to use a singular verb, not a plural one. When you use or, what you do is you go with the subject that is closest to the verb. So in this instance, Han Solo is closest to the verb is. So we have to use Han Solo as singular, so we use a singular verb. In this sentence, I flip the order. Han Solo or the Power Rangers are going to fall off the shelf. Power Rangers is closest to the verb are, so you use the plural verb are instead of the singular is. So make sure if you have the word or in a compound subject, you use the subject closer to the verb to decide whether you should use a singular or plural verb. Next is collective nouns. These can be tricky. So collective nouns are singular words that refer to groups of people or things. So the group is on the shelf. This is one group that is on the shelf. So it takes a singular verb. The baseball team is practicing outside. This is the same thing. You have the baseball team. It is one team, so it has a singular verb. Now if you have multiple groups, like the groups are having fun, then you can use a plural verb. This gets a little trickier when you have interrupters, which we'll get to, I believe, next. Nope, but we'll get to them in a minute. So first we have indefinite pronouns. Now this is probably the trickiest part because there's a lot to remember. Indefinite pronouns are pronouns that can take different forms. So we have first always singular pronouns. So these indefinite pronouns will always take a singular verb. Here's a list of them. So notice that in these, a lot of them have the words thing, body, or one in them. When you see those hints of a pronoun, then you will probably know that it's going to be singular. For instance, everybody needs to see Star Wars. So even though everybody sounds like it's talking about multiple people, the pronoun is singular. It has that word body in it, which shows that it just is kind of referring to one person. So you have to have a singular verb to go with it. There are some that are always plural. There are less of these, both, few, many, several, and those are easier to tell that they're always plural. So few people are happy without seeing it. So when you use this few people, you are talking about more than one, so you use a plural verb are. Then there are some that can be either. So with these, some, any, none, all, most. They can be either singular or plural depending on how you use them. So some of the food is on the floor. This some is going to be singular with the singular verb is because it's some of the food. The rule is that if you have a prepositional phrase with these indefinite pronouns, if the phrase is used of the food where you can't count what it is, we don't have several different items of food. We just have some of the whole portion of the food is on the floor. That makes it singular. As opposed to some of the movies are bad. This is a definite amount of several different movies. This is more than one movie that we're referring to, so we can use the plural verb are. What you will most commonly see mistakes with, and what you'll most commonly see on tests, are these always singular ones, because they're the most tricky. So do remember, anybody, somebody, anything with body in it, with one in it, or with anything in it, is going to be singular. So you're going to have to use a singular verb with them. So now moving to interrupters, like Jar Jar Binks. So interrupters are things that come in between a subject and a verb that can confuse you as to what, if you should use singular or plural. So for this one we have the group of action figures is on the shelf, and that sounds weird, but if you take out of action figures, you can see the group is on the shelf. We only have one group. Even though the group is of a bunch of action figures, we need that singular verb is in order to make that work. Same with this next one. Anyone who loves the Star Wars movies is awesome. Again, so with this one we had a collective noun, which is singular. With this one, we have the singular indefinite pronoun, anyone. The hint is that one right there. And even though we have anyone who loves the Star Wars movies, and movies is plural, and it's right next to the verb, so it makes you think you want to use a plural verb, you do not, because the subject is actually singular. So when you take that out, you can see anyone is awesome makes more sense than anyone are awesome. So make sure that you identify the subject and the verb, and make sure you get rid of anything in the middle so you know that you're using the correct verb. And finally, tense shift. So this is a little different. This is not subject-verb agreement. What this is making sure that you use the same tense of verb all throughout your writing, especially within the same sentence. So the Millennium Falcon is the best ship ever and can make the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. On first read, there's nothing that really jumps out that's bad with this sentence. But the problem is we have this is here, which is present tense, and could, which is past tense. You have to be very careful that you make sure you leave the same tense across your writing. So we could change this to say the Millennium Falcon is the best ship ever and can make the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. Or we could change them both to past. The Millennium Falcon was the best ship ever and could make the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. Make sure that whatever you use, whatever sentence you're using, or whatever you're writing throughout an essay or a work, that you keep the same tense whenever possible. So remember those rules for subject-verb agreement. as well as tense shift, and we'll work on it tomorrow.